Now with all the latest evening headlines, it's the ITV News at 10.
COVID cases hit a new record high with 130,000 testing positive. The government says get a jab, enjoy New Year, but be cautious as the Omicron variant spreads.
Many people will know somebody who's caught this over the Christmas period. So do be cautious. Take a lateral flow test before you go out.
Also ahead, Priti Patel orders a review of Crossbow laws after the Christmas Day scare for the Queen at Windsor.
It has been yet another one-sided performance. It has been the most
Calls for heads to roll in English cricket as Australia delight in their crushing Ashes victory. And the 4-year-old boy who got a life-saving gift from his father this Christmas.
This is ITV News with James Mates.
Good evening. Watched closely by ministers, the latest coronavirus figures continue to head in one direction, up. Today was another record breaker for cases, with England and Wales alone reporting nearly 130,000 infections. Complete data from Scotland and Northern Ireland is yet to be published. It comes as many people prepare to celebrate the new year, which will arrive in England with no new restrictions in place. The government says people should enjoy the moment, but do so cautiously. Here's our political reporter, Shihab Khan.
This is what the ultimate power night out will be hoping to repeat on New Year's Eve this year. With the government saying there'll be no new restrictions in England for the rest of 2021, work is underway to welcome clubbers on Friday night. The co-owner says it's a huge relief and thinks it'll be safe enough for people to enjoy.
Now that they've announced that it's safe for us to carry on as normal, we're operating in our venues with all the government regulations in place. We passionately believe that it will be a safe environment for people to be in and have fun with their friends for New Year's Eve, see the end of a terrible year and hopefully see the beginning of a good, positive 2022.
There are, however, concerns. The latest data shows almost another 130,000 COVID cases have been recorded in England and Wales, up 30% from the previous week. More than 9,000 people were in hospital in England with COVID as of 8 a.m. this morning. That's up 38% on the week before. And the government has this message for those celebrating the new year.
Do be cautious. Take a lateral flow test before you go out. Go to well-ventilated areas. I've been to a couple of outdoor parties, actually. People have moved things to outside. So just be cautious, but, do try to enjoy yourself as well.
But with cases so high, most getting jabbed here today, we're talking about potentially scaling back their plans.
Normally, I'm out and about. But now, not really. Yeah, I'm truly staying at home.
Well, we had planned to sort of have a couple friends around, maybe 30, 40 people. Definitely won't be happening now. Probably more maybe 10 people of us.
A lot of our friends have already had some positive tests, so the people that we were planning to meet with probably won't be able to meet us anyway. So, also my wife's pregnant, so we're only having a small dose.
Regardless, pressure is already mounting on the NHS during what is notoriously a rather difficult period of the year.
Well, there are three things going on at once. The NHS was already very busy before this latest Omicron variant came, busier than we've been at this time of year for a very long time. Secondly, we've now got a rising number of cases. But the third bit, which is also causing significant complications, is the fact that we've got large numbers of staff absences due to COVID-19.
As the festive period comes to an end, if the NHS starts to struggle, questions about the government's decisions will only grow louder.
Well, Shihab is here now. Shihab, given they continue to set records, why is the government so confident that the NHS won't be overwhelmed?
At the moment, the belief is that it hasn't impacted hospitalisations enough and that the NHS is in a position to be able to cope. But one thing we've learned throughout the course of this pandemic is that there's a bit of a lag between cases and that translating into hospitalisation. So those record figures that we're seeing over this festive period, we won't see the effect on hospitalisations for a few weeks. That's why the government keeps saying there'll be no new restrictions this side of the new year. This is a notoriously difficult time for the NHS. Winter is always very difficult. They are dealing with, as you've just heard in my report, many members of staff having to isolate. This could be a tough time, and we'll have to wait and see what happens as the government assesses the data. OK, Shihab, thanks very much indeed. A spike of COVID cases in New York has led the judge in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial to ask jurors to work longer hours. The jury are deliberating on allegations Maxwell aided Jeffrey Epstein in the sexual abuse of teenage girls. Judge Alison Nathan said there was a high risk that jurors and trial participants may need to quarantine, so they should expect to sit at least an extra hour each day. Home Secretary Priti Patel has ordered a review into the law surrounding the ownership of crossbows. If you're over 18, you can currently buy one without a licence. But action appears to have been prompted after a man was arrested with one in the grounds of Windsor Castle on Christmas Day. Chloe Keedy spoke to a campaigner whose partner was killed with a crossbow and wishes the government had stepped in sooner.
Do you like ice skating, Laura?
This is how Laura Sugden wants to remember her partner Shane. They were happily planning their future when it was taken away. In 2018, their next-door neighbour broke into their home and attacked them. His weapon was this crossbow. Laura, who was 5 months pregnant at the time, survived with serious injuries. Her unborn child's father did not.
Shane was taken away from so many people that he loved. He's never met his daughter, and obviously that's something that we have to still live with every day.
The Home Secretary's decision to launch a review into crossbow laws comes 3 days after an intruder was found armed with one inside the grounds of Windsor Castle. It happened a few hours before she welcomed her family for Christmas lunch. The suspect, who's 19, has now been detained under the Mental Health Act. But what happened here on Christmas Day has led to questions about why he was allowed to have a crossbow in the first place. Under current law, you don't need a licence to buy one, and a quick search online found plenty for sale.
As long as you're over the age of 18, they're easily accessible. You can literally buy them from market stalls.
Earlier this year, Laura started a petition calling for stricter laws around the sale and possession of crossbows. The Home Secretary's response in May was that the government had no plans to review them. But days after one made its way into the grounds of Windsor Castle, that seems to have changed.
Thankfully, that it didn't cause any harm. But that is what I have been trying to say to Priti Patel for 7 months, that they can and they do.
Until the law changes, Laura fears what happens to her family could happen again. Chloe Keedy, ITV News.
Sport now, and after his side's capitulation to Australia was complete, England cricket coach Chris Silverwood insisted there were positives to take from the defeat. For many observers, those are hard to find. The Ashes lost after 3 tests, the latest defeat by an embarrassing innings and 14 runs, a batting lineup which hasn't scored 300 all series, and an Australian side fired up and eyeing a 5-0 whitewash. Chris Scudder reports.
All over in less than half of the series.
Oh, he's got him.
Rarely have England lost the Ashes so quickly, even by their own dismal record down under. They looked as though they'd forgotten how to bat in an era where short-form cricket and the money that comes with it has taken over.
He's got him.
Captain Joe Root lingered a while, but not for long.
Gone.
The rest surrendered meekly.
Well, there he is. He's got it. Oh, there we go.
England's sorry total of 68 all out was their lowest in Australia since 1904.
It's bitterly disappointing. It's gut-wrenching. It's everything you don't want from this stage of the tour. But the reality is we've been outplayed.
The only hint of anything positive came from the bowlers only yesterday.
I think the way that the bowling attack, rallied and got us back into a position where we were back into this game, I think was credit to them, and I think the way that we caught in the last innings was good as well. So I think there are positives coming out of this, and as I say, I've got to give our boys credit for the way that they pushed back yesterday, but we have to find a way of scoring runs against this attack.
But it's not good enough. England have now lost 12 of the last 13 tests in Australia.
This has been the worst performance by England over the last sort of 20 to 30 years. They're not getting the runs on the board, and that is an area which Chris Silverwood needs to, address very quickly, because if he doesn't in the next 2 test matches and they have similar results, then unfortunately the ECB may just make the decision for him, which, it's not nice to see, any player or coach, being sacked from their job.
England vulnerable here on the...
And the Aussies won't be letting up either. There's nothing they want more than another 5-0 whitewash against the old enemy. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
In the Premier League, Liverpool missed the chance to close the gap on leaders Manchester City after losing 1-0 at Leicester. Mo Salah had a golden opportunity to put Liverpool ahead, but his penalty was saved and he headed the rebound onto the bar. Substitute Ademola Lookman gave the Foxes the lead in the second half, and they held on under intense pressure. Finally tonight, why this Christmas was a particularly special one for 4-year-old Oliver Kitely. Diagnosed with renal failure, he needed dialysis treatment for much of his life. But this year his father gave him the perfect gift, a new kidney. It meant he could finally properly enjoy celebrating with his family, as Yasmin Bottleby reports.
This is the first Christmas that Oliver's been able to play happily at home and hasn't needed to be in hospital hooked up to a machine.
Too fast.
Thanks to his dad, he's now full of energy.
What did Daddy give you?
My kidney.
Gave you a new kidney?
Yeah, and then Dad's got one more because I can't take it.
No, Daddy needs this other one, doesn't he?
Mummy's
And I
saving
need
her
this
kidney.
one
Mm-hmm.
to get me nice and strong.
This precious gift from his dad has ended a lifetime of dialysis. Since being diagnosed with renal failure as a baby, he's had to go to hospital 4 times a week.
We thought that he wasn't going to make it a few times, but he's a fighter. He's pulled through both times. So to get to this point and say that he's going to have a new lease of life was just incredible.
Hello, Dr. Mordy.
How are you, Oliver?
Good.
For the consultant who's known Oliver since birth, it's quite something to see him flourish.
I think this is one of the joys of doing the jobs that we do, is the huge improvement it makes on all their outlook, their ability to function and go to school and not have to come in for dialysis 3 or 4 times a week and all the other problems with that. So I think it's just a really amazing to see these improvements.
This Christmas is extra special for this family, and Oliver's delighted with all his presents. But you can't top the gift of life. Yasmin Bottleby, ITV News, Warwickshire.
That is it for tonight from me and everyone on the team here. Good night.